NATO's purely a defensive alliance, right? What do they have to fear about it? If it expands to Ukraine, what sort of threat does that present to Russia? Well, the truth is it's not purely a defensive alliance. We've seen that in recent history. In Serbia, we also saw that in Libya. The Russians observed both, events and understood that what NATO was and the danger it caused. And after the coup and after the annexation of Crimea, it became clear that there were many forces within Ukraine that wanted to take back Crimea, and they were building up their forces with NATO help to do that. And what Lavrov and others have pointed out is that if they became a member of NATO and then they attempted to take back Crimea, Russia could very easily find itself in a war with all of NATO. You'd say, well, this is, how things are always spun in the media. It might have been an unprovoked offensive operation by Ukraine, but it'll be spun that somehow the Russians were responsible for it, and then therefore all NATO must pile in. And that's what they're looking at. Now you say, well, okay, maybe this fear was excessive, but let's just stop and step back a moment and look at Russian history. Russia has been invaded through Ukraine, through the territory that we now call Ukraine, several times over the centuries. The most recent, of course, was the invasion by Germany in Operation Barbarossa. And let's just stop and think about what that did to Russia. I think most Americans don't really have a full appreciation of the Russian sacrifice. The Russians lost 27 to 28 million people. 27 to 28 million people were killed, died in this invasion as a direct result of this invasion. And that is, that's just an astronomical figure. We talk about our sacrifices during World War II. And it's right to do that. And they were considerable, but we're just talking about 500,000, 500,000. 500,000, perhaps 28 million. That's, and the population of Russia was also smaller, or the Soviet Union at that time was smaller than that of the US. The sacrifice is so huge. It's only natural that like Putin himself was just said, well, this is one of my main duties as the president of Russia, that we can never let this happen again. This is a real fear that's well founded.